I met him on a cold, rainy evening. I was huddled under the broken bridge near the edge of the city, trying to keep warm with my thin jacket. My stomach growled louder than the thunder above, and my heart felt like it had been hollowed out. I was just another girl lost in the world, homeless, alone, with no one to turn to. My name is Lamone, but I don't remember who I used to be. All I knew was that I had nothing. That's when I first saw him. At first, I didn't even notice him, but his shadow loomed larger as he walked toward me. He was thin and worn down, like me, but there was something different about him. His eyes were deep, full of something, sadness, maybe, but also a strange kind of resilience. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. I looked up at him, unsure of how to respond. How could I possibly explain the ache in my bones, the hopelessness I felt every day? But I couldn't lie either. "No," I said, barely able to meet his gaze. "I'm not okay." He sat down beside me, not saying anything else. It was strange. Most people would avoid a homeless girl like me, but he didn't. Instead, he just sat there in silence, as if he understood the weight of my sadness without needing words. "I'm Benefrol," he said after a long while. "I'm not okay either." That night, we talked, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like someone saw me. Not just the girl on the street, but the person I still was, deep down. Benefrol told me he'd once had everything, family, friends, a job. But he had lost it all, and now he wandered through life, just like me. We both carried our burdens, but for a few hours, it felt like we weren't alone. Over the next few days, Benefrol and I became inseparable. We found an abandoned alley where we could sleep without being bothered, and every morning, we scrounged for food together. It wasn't much, but we had each other. And the cat, a scruffy, gray tabby, that had followed Benefrol since the beginning. We named her Momo. She was small and fast, darting between our feet, chasing rats and mice like it was a game. We would laugh, the sound echoing in the empty streets, small but meaningful happiness amidst the chaos. One rainy evening, Benefrol brought a tattered notebook he'd found in the trash. "Let's write down our dreams," he said with a sheepish grin. It seemed silly at first, but soon, we were scribbling away, listing places we wanted to see, foods we wanted to try, and even the kind of home we'd build someday. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a future to look forward to, even if it was just words on a page. Benefrol was still sad, but there was a light in him now, a spark that hadn't been there before. We started finding small joys in life again, dancing in the rain, sharing stories under the stars, and dreaming of a better future, even if we couldn't yet see it. We had our little family now, Momo, Benefrol, and me. But nothing good stays forever. One afternoon, while we were sitting by a fountain, talking about our plans for the future, a black car pulled up. I didn't recognize it, but my heart skipped a beat. The door opened and out stepped two men. They looked like they were searching for someone or something. And then, they saw me. "Lamone," one of them called, his voice cold and calculating. "There you are. Come with us." I froze. My whole body tensed, and I could feel panic rising in my chest. Benefrol's eyes widened, and without saying a word, he stood up and moved in front of me. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice shaking but full of defiance. The men ignored him, focusing only on me. "Your family wants you back, Lamone. We've been looking for you." I stepped back, my mind racing. I didn't want to go back to them. I didn't want to go back to the people who had thrown me away. I couldn't go back to a life that had never loved me. But as I turned to run, one of the men grabbed my arm and yanked me back. "Let her go," Benefrol shouted, stepping between us. But before I knew what was happening, one of the men lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. "Benefrol!" I screamed, rushing toward him. But they dragged me away, pulling me into the back of the car. I struggled, kicking and screaming, but it was no use. They took us to a dark, run-down building on the outskirts of the city, and I was locked in a small, dimly lit room. Benefrol was thrown into the one next to mine. I felt hopeless again, like I was losing everything all over again. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't let them take me back. Not now. Not after I'd found something worth living for. I didn't know how much time had passed, but I could hear Benefrol's voice, faint through the walls. "We're getting out of here," he said. "You and me. Don't let them break you, Lamone. We're strong, remember. Momo's waiting for us." That was it. Something clicked inside me. I had lost so much, but I wasn't about to lose him too. Not after everything we'd been through together. Not after he had been the first person to show me I still mattered. We broke up that night, managing to escape through a window. But they were close behind. We ran through the dark streets, our hearts pounding. We couldn't stop now. Not when we had fought so hard for a future. As we fled, we stumbled across an abandoned warehouse. Inside, we found tools, ropes, and even an old map. Benefrol's eyes lit up as he pieced together a plan. "We'll use this to disappear for good," he said, his voice filled with determination. Eventually, we found ourselves at the edge of the city, by the water. There was a boat docked there, and we took it, leaving the city behind. We didn't know where we were going, but we had to go. The island we landed on was isolated, quiet, and far away from the people who had tried to control me. We stumbled ashore, battered and bruised, but alive. I collapsed onto the sand, my chest heaving, and Benefrol sat beside me. He looked at me with tired eyes, his voice hoarse but steady. "Lamone, you've been through so much. But you have to promise me one thing." I looked at him, confusion crossing my face. "What?" "Promise me you'll live," he said, his words slow but filled with deep meaning. "Promise me you'll live for you. Don't look back, don't regret anything. Move forward, always forward." I nodded, tears streaming down my face, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. I wasn't alone anymore. I had found something worth fighting for. And no matter what happened, I would keep moving forward, never looking back. Benefrol was right. Life wasn't easy, but we had each other, and that was enough. From that moment on, I promised myself I would live, truly live. For both of us. For the life we had left to build. And I would never let anyone take that away from me again.